And we're live on the Comic Head 84 channel, bringing to you Graders Notes, episode number 5, reviewing Marvel Secret Wars number 1. I think, I'm surprised I'm not seeing it on my screen yet. Must be a lag.
I see you.
You see me?
Yeah, man. You don't get the chat up yet?
I see the chat.
I got the chat.
Oh, there you go. Wow, your boy Comic Kid has some serious lag, but it's okay. We're here. And yeah, happy to be here with you guys. I'm going to kick it over to the host of this episode of Graders Notes. The chooser of the book is the quarterback on the field, and that's none other than Dave, Mr. Miracle Comics. How are you, brother?
Thanks, Kenny. Sorry to everybody about this. This was my mix-up. It was supposed to be on my channel tonight, but apparently I'm a software noob and I didn't quite get everything together in time. So Kenny graciously offered to host the show for tonight. So thanks, Kenny. I really appreciate that. It was getting frustrating for me. Okay, tonight we are going to go over Secret Wars number 1 from 1984. It is an iconic issue for the beginning of the Copper Age. And joining me tonight is, of course, the venerable Mr. Metarog, bringing his comic knowledge to the chat and to our live stream tonight. I've got Mr. Genome Presents, the professor. He's going to get this down to an analytical science on this book. And, of course, the Macho Head, the man that brings it always all together for the show, Comic Head 84. Kenny. So yeah, we're going to break it down. We're going to put up the 5 categories for tonight's show. We're going to look at a cover. We're going to look at the interior. We're going to give it a grade on the story, on the concept, and then an overall grade. And we'd really like everybody in the chat to join us and give us your grades on all of those when we're asking. And we're going to tally them all up and see if your grades match with our grades and see what the overall score for this book is. So please, don't hide your answers. Put them up in the chat, and Genome, he's going to help keep track of everything for us. He's good with that.
We all have our talents.
Yes. All right. So, how many people we got in the chat? 7? Should we have a little talk?
What was that?
Roger, you must have something to say here.
Oh, okay. Well,
How are you feeling about this episode?
I wanted to talk about the chat first, if you don't mind, Dave. We got John's Comics with Kids in here. I know he's a big Secret Wars fan, so he's going to have some input here. I guarantee you. We got Comic Lover Omega. I think he was in our last show too. Welcome. All the way from Australia, we got Werewolf by Lunchtime, my favorite YouTube name of all time. My partner in crime on the No Faces chat on Monday, DS Comics, the Golden Age guru. This man has more knowledge about Golden Age than all of us have altogether about all ages. All right. We got Comics Mix Explained, another great YouTuber live streamer. And the Comic Collector, who's coming on strong. He is supporting so many chats, so many channels. He's got a new contest just cropped up, I think today or yesterday. So we are blessed to have an incredible crowd here tonight. So when we are ready to rumble, we are ready for the DDTs and the fireman carries. Let's go.
And small packages. That's what she said. Just kidding.
Speak for yourself. No.
Unruly Simeon and Barbarian Kung Fu just entered the squared circle. Thanks for hanging out, guys. And I'm glad you guys are coming through and supporting this show because, man, it's definitely one of my favorites that we do. I think this is like a unique concept, and I really think we have something here. So I'm glad people are digging it and are showing up to hang out. For sure.
And the go-to geeks, Lawrence just came in too.
One of my favorite parts of the show is that there's so much participation with the chat, right? A lot of shows, the live streams, the guys are just talking and people are chatting, but the two don't seem to be interacting with one another very much. So this show is great in the fact that we really bring the chat into the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely truly a spectator sport.
And participant sport too.
Yeah, man.
I
So
was reading the chat there. Sorry.
How dare
I
you.
was a spectator.
Concentrate.
That's why I work
Dave,
for free,
before
boy.
we start grading the book, why don't you just let them know? So, what's the book we got? I want to give a quick intro of what is this book we have on the chopping block today.
Like I said, we have Marvel's Secret Wars #1 from 1984. It's written by Jim Shooter. Art and illustration by Mike Zeck, including this cover illustration. And yeah, we're going to break it down. This is a very, very well-known issue. Most people know all about the Secret Wars that happened, and there's been several more Secret Wars since. So, but this is where it all started, and this issue has a lot of history that surrounds it, in a lot of firsts, and it really set the tone for, how comics are kind of marketed by big companies now, right? And how limited series are seen, and how big events that have crossovers are done. That all started with this issue. So it has a lot of history to it. It is an iconic issue, but let's see how it stands just as a comic book on its own, without all that history behind it. We're just going to break it down set by set and let the book stand on its own. Is it a good read? Is it worth all the hype? Let's take a look.
Absolutely. And just want to greet the newest people that have joined the chat. Delphia, DK, Comics and Cosplay, along with Kachun, the dynamic duo, the Beyonce and Jay-Z of comic YouTube, if I may say so myself. And who else? Oh, and my guy, I think a strong rookie of the year, coming in strong, because I don't think he's been making videos that long, but Bear Island Comics is putting out content, great personality, great quality. I need to find out what kind of camera you're using, brother, because your videos look great.
Crystal clear.
Yeah, it really is, man. Great dude in the community. So make sure you subbed up to my boy, Bear Island, and Comic Sam. Hey, bud.
And Bear Island has Instagram, too.
Yeah.
Speaking of people in the chat, make sure everyone is subbed up to each other. If you see someone new in chat, go see if they have a channel and make sure to give them a sub and a like.
That's right. Always good etiquette.
All right.
All right, guys. You got the gloves off? You ready to rumble? Dave?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
Pay attention to the chat as well. All right, so we're going to start with the cover. And I'm going to let, who's going to be first? The first guy to pop up in my chat, or when I had it on, was Gino. So I'm going to let you start this one off with the cover.
All right, going to start with the cover. And one more reminder, we have set a time limit for ourselves now of 3 minutes. So when you hear the mightiest of all fowl here, let's see if I can actually get it pulled up. Actually, not fowl. This almost was our state or our national bird. So when you hear the turkey, that means that person has about 20 seconds left. He needs to shut up and get on to the point. So
there you go.
All right, so let's get on to it. Timer start. Okay, so as to the cover art, well, we have, which is kind of funny. I made a video about this a long time ago. My absolute favorite of the 80s artist and inker duo in Mike Zeck and John Beatty. John Beatty is actually one of the few signatures I actually have for a comic book. That's a totally unrelated story, but I think I did it. It might have been in your contest video, Kenny. I can't remember, a long time ago, but I explained how I met him, and he was a really cool guy. But I've always really enjoyed his inks. But now let's go ahead and get off that and get to the cover itself. The cover itself is kind of the superhero mashup of all mashups for covers. Back in the 80s and 90s, we used to make those huge posters that were like 50 characters long. Well, this is basically the abridged version of it. Got a lot going on one hand, at least as far as posing goes, but actually not a lot going on as far as content goes. you can't really tell what's going on. I mean, it's just a bunch of dudes jumping at the screen, basically at the cover. So the artwork itself is pretty good and really highlights Zek's, I hate to use the word command, but he has a really good command of depth and keeping proportions right at distance. If you look at some of the far off characters, like for instance, Storm in this picture is pretty far back in the picture, and you'd be tempted to make her really tiny and nondescript, but she still has a pretty good amount of detail, even in her joints and all that. So, and he didn't make her super tiny. He also gets things right, like the Human Torch's flame being behind Storm. So it really gives you, it gives the cover a lot of depth because there's a lot of characters on here. Now, as far as the art itself, while I'm a huge Zek fan, I'm not real crazy about this cover, to be honest with you. Some of the faces on this cover are not all that good, and I don't like the Things treatment at all. He looks pretty awful. He doesn't look menacing at all. He looks kind of ridiculous, if you ask me, with his eyes, his big blue Google eyes, and yeah, I don't know. It's solid, serviceable, but it just doesn't convey that much. You know, it just looks like a Sunday morning cartoon or something. You know what I mean? On the title page. Once again, I hate saying anything bad about Zek, and I'm not saying it's a bad cover. It's a good cover. I just, for something as epic as it is, I'm not sure that it's just as glorious as it could have been. Plus, all you see is heroes. There's no villains on here, which the villains in this story, not to get into it too much, play as big a role as the heroes do, basically. So, solid. Definitely shows. And the inks are excellent, by the way, and the shadowing is really good for a cover. But I'm going to go ahead and give this kind of a middling grade. I'm actually going to go with 3.5.
3.5 for Mr. G.
Right. Yeah, 3.5. That's an interesting score there, David. A good take on it for sure.
Thank you.
No, you made some really good points on that one. I'm looking at the cover going, yeah, I guess so. So let's bring it over to the next person that joined to my last stream, and that's Mr. Roger. Not Mr. Rogers, but Mr. Roger Medarog. How do you feel about this cover, sir?
Welcome to the neighborhood, everybody. That's a very old reference there. Well, my esteemed colleague Gino, boy, he didn't leave a lot on the bone, and I just happen to agree with a lot of what he said. But I'm just going to talk a little bit here about the points perhaps he didn't stress enough. I am a huge Zek fan. His run on Captain America is, to me, one of the best looking art for that character. The way that he conveys motion and depth, I think Genome talked about that, is, you know, at least at that point was, you know, second to none. But, you know, this cover here, it's just so crowded. You know, everybody, it literally, it looks like Wolverine and Captain America are sharing the same shoulder. You know, they're almost like conjoined twins there. And everybody behind there looks like literally they're jumping out of the same little hole. Again, I understand that they wanted to emphasize, make the figures as big as possible, but to me, it looks mighty crowded. And I think this is one epic kind of issue that a wraparound cover would have been called for. I know that back then it was a kind of a rare thing to have a wraparound cover like Crisis did a couple years later. But I think this is one cover where it sort of screams to have it folded out. And like Genome says, we got no villains here. And once we get into the story, the villains are just as critical to what the Beyonders trying to do here as the heroes. In fact, without that, there's no story at all, and they are totally left out. I mean, you can assume that they are fanning out to, you know, to either attack or protect themselves, but the cover doesn't really strike to me that is a war going on. It strikes to me more of like a poster that I'm going to put up on my wall later on, you know. So yes, I agree with Genome that it could have been a lot better. The Thing looks really just weird. I mean, he looks like he just came out of that rocket when he mutated. You know, it was a really strange looking pose and mouth. So for all that, I didn't even like it as much as Genome, honestly. I gave it a 3.
3. Harsh beans from Metarog. That's for sure. Yeah, a little wishy-washy on that cover. All right, so yeah, again, some very valid points, Roger. And art is subjective, so you got to like what you got to like. Excuse me. And yeah, so let's hear the opinion of my last fellow here, Mr. Comic Kid 84. Kenny, how did you feel about this cover?
My pleasure. And let me get out the way that I unfortunately was not able to get my hands on a hard copy in time. So, wah wah, digital copy. I know. But nonetheless, I got it and I read it. So I got to worry about glare and shit because, anyway. So, this cover, overall, it's very iconic, right? So,
Yes.
it gets points for that. The trade dress up top, I like it a lot. I like the color contrast of the red and yellow on the blue. I think I would have liked if the whole background was just a solid color instead of the weird kind of gradient thing that happens at the top. Now, Team Splash covers is a soft spot for me. I love them. I've always loved them. It covers like this harken me back to the first comic book that I ever purchased, which I have on hand. This issue of Amazing Spider-Man, which is a great splash cover of a team. That one had an all-white background, by the way. So I think that probably would have worked on this one too. However, I think the layout, this stupid glare, I think the layout leaves some to be desired, right? So I think like the sizes of the characters in distance isn't quite right. Like the Hulk looks like he's the same size as pretty much everyone else. I think the smarter move would have been to put Hulk way in the background behind every character and bump up his size. Make him the big character flying in from behind everybody. That way you can make him as big as possible. The biggest fail on this cover, which hopefully I can show, is there we go. Is that Colossus. Oh my god. Little old baby Colossus popping out of the thing's armpit is ridiculous. He has little baby hands. And I think that's just an example of throwing characters in last minute without really having too much thought to like the composition of it. I didn't like that She-Hulk was wearing a tan tank top because I'd never seen her wear that before. And just like wedging Rogue in there between Cap and Colossus, it just gets a little crowded. I do think that that's one of the coolest Captain America drawings ever. Him in the forefront there is legendary. I think they wasted space with the little word bubble there on the side, the little hype train of can the combined forces defeat da da da. I think that threw off a bit of the symmetry that this cover could have had. Because you notice you have stuff like the weird smushed in Colossus because it looks lopsided because I had to deal with that little bubble. So that wasn't my favorite cup of tea. 22nd warning, I will say, with all those things being the case, I still like it. It's flawed, but I still like it very much, and I gave it a 4.
4 from Kenny. Getting up there a little bit. Obviously liked it a little more. Yeah, some good valid points. For sure, this little word bubble here could really have gone, right? It would have been nicer to have another character here or Colossus in proper size here with the other X-Men. Hey, that's sort of backseat driving on Mike Zach's work here, but yeah. Me personally, how I feel about the cover, I know something. I'm always nerdy about things, and I went and I researched all this stuff, of course, and I started digging into the internet, and then hours later I poked my head up. And one of the things that I know with this book is that it was actually to promote a Mattel toy. Mattel had bought the rights to all the superhero action figures from Marvel, and they wanted to launch a comic book to kind of promote that, and that's where Secret Wars came from. And they told Mike Zeck, you have to have these characters on the cover as part of our promotion, right? So he literally had to try and cram all of this stuff in because he had to. He was told to. This is the deal. This is why you're getting paid, Mike. Draw us up a cover with all of these heroes to help promote this toy. So in that kind of idea, like, I don't know. I think he could have laid it out a little better, but I really think he did quite a nice job. Mike Zeck's covers are, he's done quite a bit of good cover work. I think if Mike Zeck were around today, he would probably be one of those cover only guys. You know what I mean? Doing the variant covers and stuff like that. So I did like this cover. I think he did the best job he could with everything that he had to cram onto the cover. I mean, he even loses extra space at the top because they've got to put one in a 12-issue limited series too, right? So the title's really big in that as well. So I gave it a 4.5. Just gave it just a little bit down because, again, I agreed with you. Like, it would have been nicer to see something there. Would have been nicer kind of bring that out a little bit, make the characters a little more in perspective to some, not have Storm flying up Spider-Man's butt there would be nice, But overall, I think Mike Zeck did a really great job with the parameters that he was given. So 4.5 for me.
Well, Dave being a Zeck apologist here, I don't really care what parameters he had under. I'm judging this based on what I see and what I like, and I know a little bit about that. He had to do this and he had to do that, and so did Marvel, but that doesn't mean I gotta like it.
No, I agree, and this is your opinion. This is why we're here. We got to duke it out.
That's right, man.
I mean, this is what Zeck is capable of, even at that time. I mean, he was so far ahead of the game.
There you go.
He was so good.
Fantastic.
That's a 4.5 to me right there. Maybe hovering close to a 5. Yeah.
You know what? I just noticed this too. As after I got done with my review, I didn't even mention it, and none of you guys did either. If you look on Cap's shield, there's the Wasp's shadow right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just now noticed that. I'm slow.
Yeah.
He's I don't know. I like it. I remember buying this off the rack when I was a little kid, right? Like, this issue came out when I was 11. And, I remember going and buying that one and just being in love with this cover for sure. So maybe I got a little soft spot for it. Maybe that's influenced my grade a little bit, but
all right. We'll forgive you.
By 4.5.
We'll forgive you this time, Dave. We'll forgive you.
And I like Mike Zeck. So, I mean, there's that cover. This is another Mike Zeck cover, right?
Oh yeah, the original run, Volume 1 Punisher stuff. Yeah.
But I mean,
Hey, I'm a big Zeck fan, but I'm judging what I see in front of me. I'm not giving him, points for what he did on other covers. I'm putting it just on this cover.
Fair enough. Okay, let's move along. Cover grades are in. How did the chat score it?
Yeah, now is the chat's opportunity to throw in their grades on the cover. So, yeah, we'd love you to throw your grades in there so we can tally them up, average them up, and get the fifth grader on the show is the chat.
You got it. And that's
that's
probably the most important grader because we're all over the place, Remember, one is, stuff you wouldn't use as toilet paper, and 5 is, the Guggenheim stuff. So, let's make sure that you can put 0.5s like we do. It's really a 10-point scale. So let us know what you think.
And speaking of, while we're waiting for the tallies to come in or waiting for more grades to come in, you can't talk about Zeck and not show his most iconic cover ever, I think. But Sorry, I'm getting glare here. Got
I
lights
would
on.
disagree with you on that one, but
Oh, man.
that's a discussion for another day.
I had this poster hanging my wall. I had to special order it from LCS back in like '89 or something like that.
Yeah.
It shows you how cool I was in high school. I had the Punisher hanging on my wall.
Yeah, the Cap, the one where Cap is looking over the city on a rooftop, to me is the most iconic Zek cover. But anyway, I digress.
All right, can you
D-Runk.
see? You get
D-Runk
your.
is coming in with a 3.
Oh, give me 1 sec,
I was
guys.
gonna say, you got your abacus ready. Let's go.
Oh, you got your
I gotta
you
get
got
my,
your
my
abacus.
abacus.
Yeah, we're low tech here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you guys are asking me to do addition. I mean, come on, man.
We're
Addition, let's
awful.
do division. Oh, Jesus. Okay.
George
so-
obviously knows what he's talking about. He comes up with a 3. All right, let's just keep going. Caleb says 4. Kachung, 3. Werewolf by Lunchtime, my buddy from Australia, 4. Unruly Simeon, 3 points. You can't do 3.75. I don't know, 3.5, guys?
3.5. We'll round it down.
All right. Scoon says 7. Okay, that's 3.5, I guess. It's a 5-point scale, Scoon. Chad comes in with a 4. Discovery Bay 3. Comics Misexplained 3.5. Scoon. Oh, now he says 4. Okay, fine. And Barbarian 4.5.
And John from Comics.
Oh,
Kids.
John Comics with Kids 4.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big fan. He's like Dave, Mr. Miracle over here, you know?
That's right.
Yeah, I know you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Kenny, what do we got?
That means that the average chat score was 3.7, which does that technically round it down to 3.5, right? It has to be 3.75 to go up
Yeah.
to 4.
Yeah, 3.5.
So we get a 3.5 chat grade on the cover.
Yeah.
Incidentally,
Alright.
that was my grade, by the way.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
The grade of the masses. Okay, all right. Fine.
Apparently, have my
Okay, I
finger
think
on the
it's
pulse
fair.
of
I think that's
our
fair.
chat.
Yeah. You're on the pulse,
All right, guys. Let's move along to the interior, shall we? So we started last time with Gino, and this time we're going to start with Mr. Roger over there, Metarog.
Okay.
So let me know what
Okay,
you think of the interior art of this. Yeah. This.
All righty. All right. Let's see a little bit here. Let's see a little bit while we talking through here. First of all,
like
there's
Metarog's
my
getting heated.
signature there, by the way, which I got back in 1987, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. That's one of my few signatures, by the way. Zek is, as I was saying about the cover, he has really clean lines. He knows characters well. He knows their anatomy pretty well, but some exceptions. Like look at Reed Richards here. Obviously, he would be trying to survey. They're in a big room here, so they're kind of close together, but we assume they're kind of teleported that way. Look at the backgrounds, though. Look at that back there and the machinery. Okay, it's shadowy, but it's got some detail to it. So I give him credit there. Look at the emotion here in this face with, again, more shadowing. He's very good at that. I mean, as far as seeing where the light is and sort of making it brighter and darker wherever it's not. Okay, he's very good at that. Look at that figure of Galactus. Pretty well done. The scale may be just a tad off, but pretty well done compared to these villains, which we talked about before. My problem here, I love Zek. I really do. But in crowd scenes, his detail kind of goes downhill a little bit. Look at these villains here. They look at Ultron's face there. It looks almost like a smirk, and again, they're just not that crisp and sharp. He's good when he has a closer up like this, although this looks a little bit odd. But when we start zooming out, he loses a little bit, unlike Perez and Byrne, for example. But look at there. Look at the facial expression, the eyes there, and look at the Thor there. Pretty good. Okay. Again, pretty good, but overall, I think Zek was probably not the best choice for having so many characters in a series like this. Because unless you can break them up into smaller chunks, he does seem to sort of lose himself and doesn't realize that there are others around that have to have a little more prominence than others, and they just sort of blend too much in the background. Now there is, remember, this is the regular cover here. This is not anybody's fault except it's a print error. Okay,
Oh,
that is
you
not
got
the
the
way
error.
it's supposed to look. This guy is supposed to be green with yellow here. Okay, so I'm not faulting that. The reprint, which I think Genome has, should have the correct color palette there. But even up here, you see it's incorrect. Okay, so I'm not going to talk too much more about this. I'll leave some meat on the bone. Really good energy signature there and good swirl action. Good perspective from the top, almost 3/4. Again, Zek solid as far as that goes. I don't love him when there's a lot of characters on one panel. He just doesn't really do it for me the way Perez and Byrne does. So I give him overall just an average grade for this issue, 2.5.
And by the way, it is correct in the reprint. So
Okay, great.
Well done, Metarog.
Yeah, all right, Roger. Yeah, good job. Letting us know how you feel about that one. Again, can't argue with a lot of the points that you made, brother. Giving it a kind of a on the middle grade there still with this issue. It's not quite sure whether you like it or not here yet, Roger. So the next person that we're going to hit up for give us a opinion on the interior is Mr. Comic Kid 84. Kenny, please tell me, how did you feel about the interior of this book?
I love to. So I'll say, let's see how this goes. One thing is for sure, this is the last time I do a digital one. That's for damn sure. So, one thing I like is, I think it's page 3 and 4 when they do. He seems to have, and the thing you lose on digital is when sometimes there's kind of effects being done from the 2 pages on your left and right, and page 3 and 4 seems to be an example of like doing parallel panels on each side, which I always get a kick of. On page 3, you get this top bar of all the heroes lined up, which actually looks pretty cool to see them all lined up like that. And on the opposing page, you get the same layout with the villains for the Galactus's feet in the background, which is funny. His just a pair of Galactus boots is in the background of the whole first half of the issue with the villains sitting around, which I think is kind of funny, but they probably should have just left him out of some of those panels, and we can just assume he's there. And just like you have Magneto on the side of the panel there with a yellow background, you also have Cat with the same deal. So that was a cool trick. I always love seeing that kind of stuff. To Roger's point, one thing about team books and big casts of characters is the more characters you have in the panel, the less detail you're going to get. Which this book suffers from in different moments. We just get really little detail. There's just so much going on the page, and even in addition to that, I think it even could have been even a little more detailed in spite of all the characters. So maybe maybe he had an off day there where he didn't feel like really getting in there. Facial expressions, however, I'm big on that. I've mentioned this in other reviews. Comic art, I need good facial expressions. And this book delivers on that. This issue was great lighting, by the way. This is one of my favorite pages when the blast cast this white and gray kind of color scheme over the pages. Beautiful. I think that, like, we reviewed Crisis on Infinite Earths not long ago, and for example, I think Perez did a better job of laying out panels with a big cast of characters on it, and he was able to lay out the panels a little more dynamically and do some cool things throughout. And Zek didn't quite have the same talent for team book drawing as Perez did, I think. But, like I said, great facial expressions here. And, when he gets up close and has the chain, like that's an excellent page by Galactus. Laying down, taking a little nap. One thing about Marvel books that like the Crisis book didn't have, lots of primary colors popping. When you get a bunch of Marvel characters together, you got bright blues and reds and yellows, and in classic comic fashion, all the villains are green and purple. Like they're literally 4 of them right there. Kang, even the Lizard is green and purple. That's like a time-honored tradition in old comics. Is the villains' color scheme is always green and purple, and the heroes are always those big primary colors, blue and red. So anyway, yeah, it was pretty cool. A couple critiques here and there. I wasn't astounded by it, so I'll leave you with the grade of a 3. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Kenny. That's
Hey, Medrog, what was your score again?
2.5, sir.
2.5. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, thanks, Kenny.
Good,
That was
good points. Good points you made there, Kenny. Really good points. I didn't even think of a few of those. Really good points.
Oh, thanks. Felt like I was babbling.
Yeah. No, you're good, man. So yeah, giving it a 3. So a little wishy-washy on some of this one. Personally, I got to agree with you. A lot of the backgrounds could have used more detail. Zeki seemed to like really crowd every panel with as many characters as he could put all the time, and I don't think you really needed to. Like, you didn't need to have 8 characters in the panel where only one character is speaking to somebody, right? Like you could, and when he did focus in on the characters, he did get a lot more detail. But the backgrounds weren't there. There is one shot of like where the villains are going to hang out, and that kind of building and a background kind of spacey scene. Well, I thought that was well done, but I mean that's one panel in the whole book. Definitely not Zek's best work. A lot of the times, it just seemed he even departed from his own sort of style. It kind of looked like he was trying to copy John Byrne at some of the stuff, like especially with some of the Fantastic Four stuff, and that kind of confused me. Like it just didn't seem like a Zek illustration at some points. So I wasn't too happy with the interior myself. The cover I felt was much, much better, and I gave the interior a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 3.
So that's my opinion. And like I said, everybody's got their own opinions, and art is subjective, and comic books are subjective. And yeah, I always remember this issue with a lot of fondness again and nostalgia, right, in my childhood brain. But yeah, I didn't really I didn't think the interior stood up nearly as well as the cover did in sort of today's kind of deal, right? Yeah, artists today definitely, seem to put a lot more effort into detail and backgrounds.
Some do.
Yeah, some do.
There's still some. It's a really cool input in the chat over the last few minutes. Kachun saying Galactus really could kneel some more for the sake of the artist. Get him in the panel. And a lot of funny shoe memes about Galactus. What are those? That's a great one. Comics Explained. He could use a pair of Tims, perhaps. Yeah, I mean, if they're going to be front and center on the page like that, he could have thought about his shoe style game a little more. And welcome the newest entry into the chat, my homie, Justin Vasconcelos. Thanks for joining the chat, my brother. But there's still one more person yet to grade the interior art, right?
Yeah, I just, I was just reading the chat too, and Unruly Simeon, he brought up a point that, maybe Zek's heart just wasn't in it because it was a toy promotion and he was just doing it to get a page count and a paycheck. Right? He was, if he's getting too much direction, like if you're an illustrator and you're getting too much direction, that's kind of a drag, and you might be like, fine, I'll put 10 Captain Americas in this panel and all that shit, right? Anyway, David, Mr. Gino.
Well,
how did you feel about the interior? I know
listen,
you how much you love Mike Zeck.
I'm an unabashed Mike Zeck fanboy, and I think he was you know, one of the great innovators of the 80s, you know, and really brought a real mature style that comic books were lacking. It didn't carry over into this book, though. He a lot of what he drew on the interiors of this book reminds me of like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of with a little bit distortion, warping into faces or hands, or they making really weird expressions. Now, like Kenny says, I like that he gives everyone an expression. That is cool. That actually, you know, it shows that he actually. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback there. You know, it shows that, you know, he put a little extra time in it. Maybe he might have been rushed, but he wasn't totally actually ACL. But sometimes that's an Achilles heel. When you have like Iron Man, his mouth, and especially Doctor Doom, his mouth is making like a sad face. Like, their expression should not change. Their eye should not change because of, you know, what they're feeling at the time. But that I don't care for that too much at all. They should be real plain, robotic looking faces because they're metal masks. Those aren't going to move around really much. But I'll tell you one thing he does get right really well, and no one else mentioned this, is the space scenes. When it's just like panels with space scenes in it, they're awesome. They're great, even if there's no characters in them. I mean, that's great too. And the planet battle world coming together and all like that. So some things he gets really right, and I do enjoy John Beatty's inks with him. I think they're a great duo. As far as like some size issues, especially with Galactus, that's really difficult to work Galactus in with mere mortals. You know what I mean? I mean, the scale is so off. I know Galactus can change his size and all that, but if that's the case, they should have made Galactus like just 10 feet tall instead of 60 feet tall, you know? So that's a daunting task, I think, for any artist, because getting his scale right with regular size beings and all. I think it was Metarog earlier mentioned that Hulk wasn't drawn big enough. I tend to agree with that. He needs to be a little bit more imposing, but he doesn't have a huge role in this book, so there's no sense in making him larger in life. And actually, I think they were actually trying to move Hulk away from just the physical aspect, especially in this book, and focus more on his brain since he's now fully intelligent, as opposed to Savage Hulk days of the 70s or whatever. So, but I mean, the art is serviceable. A lot of the background is kind of blah. I will say this too, is no one else mentioned it, is there is, I think, the perfect amount of panels in this book. Like when we did Crisis, there was way too many panels, I thought, in that book. And for as much as going on in here, they kept the page layouts pretty clean, easy to follow, nothing too weird on there. But, you know, definitely not Zeck's best work by a long shot, but entirely serviceable. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 3. Like I said, just with maybe a little more time or maybe a little more effort on Zeck's part, it could have been really epic. But as it is, it's just mostly serviceable. I'm going to stick with 3.
3. So again, another sort of.
Did we all give it 3? Did everyone go 3?
No, I went 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5 from Metarog.
I almost went 3. The crowd scenes and the lack of detail and the kind of like fading of the characters just bothered me too much, so I had to go average.
All right, so we've got one more. We got one more person to chime in, and that's our chat. Please, everybody in the chat, how did you feel about the interior of this book, and what grade out of 5 would you give it? Because there's too many scenes where he's got to have like 10 guys in there, and there's no background, and then they start losing detail, and then there's other scenes where he's getting big close-ups that are great, and it's really great, and then some of it. Like there's some shots of Mr. Fantastic, and it just looks like he's totally trying to copy John Byrne. Yeah,
true. Like I said, the Zeck in his strength is when you get in there, you look at the facial expressions, you can see the shadowing. You know, that's when he's good. So that's why he was so good on Master of Kung Fu, because that one it's kind of a spy noir, and he brought out all those kinds of aspects. But in here, he just seemed kind of lost here and there, just not sure how to deal with the amount of characters and the story, the flow of the story at points. That's why I had to knock him down. All right.
While we're waiting, here's speaking of Zeck and Beatty, here's a classic one that I did the video on a long time ago, Captain America number 289. And it's funny how Zeck and John Beatty have very similar signatures, isn't it?
Yeah, I never noticed that.
They do.
All right.
It's real close.
I believe you, Gino. All right, here we go. Ready, Kenny?
Yeah, hit me.
All right, Unruly Simeon coming in with an ape-like 3. Tomb of Comics coming in with another 3. D-Runk, George, this man and I are seen eye to eye, 2.5. Kachoon, 2.75. Guys, what are you hitting? You're killing me with these 0.75s. Let's give him a 3. All right, let's give him a 3 then. Caleb, Comics Murphy, the Silver Age Hall expert, comes in with a 3. Werewolf by Lunchtime is howling in with a 3. Comics Misexplained doesn't have any kind of issue here. He goes with 3. And Chad, my buddy from Florida, coming in with a 2, below average. And Barbarian Kung Fu coming in with a sword and sorcery and martial arts 2.
And he's trying to be
nice. And he says, I'm trying to be nice.
Okay.
All right. So that's
we have an average chat score of 2.72, which means we're gonna round down to 2.5.
0.5 interiors. Definitely, yeah, not Zach's best work.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to continue. We're going to move along a little bit more. Let's take a little departure from the art for a little bit, and we're going to talk about the story, Jim Shooter's story here. So Jim Shooter was the executive, or was the editor-in-chief at the time, and he took time to write this story. David, or sorry, who am I starting with here? Kenny. Yeah. How did you feel about this story, brother?
Story. Boy, Jim Shooter. My boy was shooting blanks on this one.
He's been working on that one all day. You can tell.
Oh, that is classic there.
Let's see. I probably don't need to illustrate as much with the with the writing, but one thing that happens all throughout this comic, and I make a point, by the way, to not. I don't like to grade, older comics, give them any leniency towards what I think is either something's good writing or not. There's plenty of old comics that I've read from 70s and 80s that have stellar writing, so I don't give any curve, grade on any curve. There's just a ton of announcing what's happening by characters, which sounds like people like characters love to state their names a lot, like I, King, the Time Conqueror, must think of something to do. And like the Absorbing Man, he's like, I, Crusher Creel, the Absorbing Man, will not stand for this. And it's a lot of like really unnatural, forced characters trying to like remind the reader who they are, I guess. There's instances of like, I know there's a scene where Dr. Doom shoots some blasts, right? And a character has to literally say, he's shooting beams from his wrist gauntlets. Like, just let the art tell you that. You don't need a character to exclaim it. Dr. Doom follows Galactus when he goes to hit the Beyonder, and he's saying out loud, my hidden rocket belt will help me fly in Galactus's current. So anyway, skip all that. Narration blocks could have done some of the work of saying certain things for the reader without the character saying it. It sounds strange. In saying all that, there's a little bit of banter between the heroes, which is fine, nothing too stellar. There's two characters that shine, as for me, and really made this thing, a highlight of a read in some moments, is Dr. Doom and Magneto. They both have good dialogue that is like, it's not, because most of the characters are just bantering with each other and announcing their names and what they're doing in that moment. But there's only a couple characters, and again, it's really just Doom and Magneto who are like dropping meaningful dialogue, in my opinion. So he has moments to shine. I like that Doctor Doom is, I forget how he words it, but he's not resigned to the fact of going along with this game. He says, to fight is to prove, to go along with this and fight is to prove that we are but microbes on a slide. I thought that was a great line. Doctor Doom's next level. So anyway, with all that being said, Galactus has that cool moment where he finger flicks Ultron and kills him in one blast. That was really fun. I like showing the massive power of my boy Galactus. And okay, I'll leave it at that because I got the goblin. So with all that being said, I hit it with a 2.5. You know, like
Thanks,
Kenny. You know, I'm gonna go with 2.5. I was about to call an audible and say 2. I'll still go with 2.5. Magneto moment.
2.25.
No.
No. 2.5.
2.5. Okay, so yeah, you weren't too happy with the story. It's not garbage, but it's not the best, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Kenny. Like, fuck Jim. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. Jim Shooter, he drives me nuts. He does this with all of his books. He has great concepts, but terrible character dialogue and terrible flow to his stories. The whole thing of every character announcing everything they're doing and who they are for everything they do. It's like, okay, yeah, this is like the third time he's said, Dr. Doom, I'm going to do something. Like, we get it. Now, in Shooter's favor, he did have to introduce all these characters, introduce some new characters like the Beyonder. He had to get all these guys. He had to get the whole concept of the book started. And then he had to figure out a way to get all these guys there and all this stuff. So there was a lot he had to pack into an issue. But man, it's just some of the dialogue in here is really, really clunky. It's really doesn't flow very well. The characters are saying things that just seem really like out of character for them and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just like he's trying to write, just get as many dialogue stuff in here. Like there's massive panels in here of just dialogue. Oh, this that doesn't need to be there. And a lot of the time, I think Shooter should have left it to the action. And I think maybe that would have brought Zek around a little more on the interiors. If he was the guy telling the story rather than having everything spelled out for the reader by Shooter on every single panel, right? So I had to agree with you, and I think you are on the same page. I gave it an on the fence 2.5.
Yeah, right.
Just don't sit on that fence, Dave.
Yeah. Anyways, like I said, pretty mediocre. Even I'm not even for Shooter. It's kind of mediocre. It definitely doesn't flow as well as a lot of his other stories have. And there are a few of his stories that are really high concept and that I like, but again, I find their dialogue really clunky when I read the books. It's like, I wish Shooter would work with somebody else, let them write the dialogue. Anyway, moving along, we're going to pick up on our next guy to chime in, and that is Gino. Gino, how did you feel about the story?
Well, as iconic as the story is, I'm going to have to go ahead and give a spoiler alert. I have actually graded right along with everybody else. This is going to get a 2.5, but I'll go into a little bit more why. As the aforementioned thing, I actually brought this up in Crisis, that once again, I think this issue seemed to be written for the new reader in mind. Like someone, hey, Mom, there's a new #1 comic up there. Can I have it? All the kids are talking about it. I want a comic book. So we have to explain what every person does, what every motivation is for these people. I'm Captain America. I lead, I'm the Human Torch. I have fire, like you were saying. Just too much explanation that any long-time reader does not need any of that, but yeah, so that eats up a lot of the story. I think in something like this, minimalist would be much better. You had this foreboding threat of the Beyonder out there, and it's not really alluded to what it even is in this one yet. But it's like the less is more. I prefer a little more mysteries. Like, why are we here? Maybe they could spend a little more time figuring that out, other than worrying about the command structure, like right off the bat. These are all seasoned heroes, seasoned villains. They kind of know what to do. You expect actually more like problems on the villain side is everyone claws for superiority. Like there's a graphic novel, Venom Death Trap, when the vault is broken into and all the villains start vying for supremacy, to see who's going to lead. But it's getting a little off subject. But so yeah, the heroes are bland, not well written for the most part. Magneto being included on the hero side at first is an interesting choice, and he definitely has the most depth there, but still not a ton. This is the Doctor Doom book. Let's just be honest. Everyone else is pretty cardboard, but Doom, he is fleshed out so well. It's basically his series for all intents and purposes. But I mean, he is well fleshed out. He has a weird little flop at the end where he switches right back to attack mode again for some reason. But I won't get into that too much. But it's just some things are done really well. Beyonder, right off the bat, they don't tell you much about him. They do put a little snippet in there about him being a multiversal threat. Galactus actually throws it out there in a little bit of dialogue, which is kind of cool. And what another thing is cool is it shows that Galactus is desperate. You don't see that too often. He's not afraid of dying, and he's not concerned at all with what's going on around him, which fits his cosmic motif, if you will. But he is desperate to get rid of his hunger, that drives him to consume worlds. And so as soon as the Beyonder presents himself somewhat, he beelines right for him, and he doesn't care if it kills him or not. He wants to get this hunger removed. So that was pretty cool. They gave Galactus some deaths too, because I think he was a regular person in the old universe before it died and it became the new universe. But anyway, it's once again serviceable. A lot of this book screams serviceable, and I think they spent so much time on the high concept that some of the other things kind of tended to suffer a bit. So, I mean, the story's not bad. It's a little bit hokey at times. I've definitely read worse. But, yeah, it could have been so much more. And I think they could have been so much more with just a little bit less. They could have just said less and left the mystery open a little more than they did. And definitely cut down on some of the hero dialogue, Just make Cap the hero or the leader, And Doom, it's funny. The other thing that's funny about Doom is you can tell how superior he thinks he is, even to the other supervillains out there. He's like, you're not even worth leading. I'm going to go. I know exactly what's going on here. I'm going to go do my own thing, and we're all going to collab and grab all this power for ourselves, really for him. But yeah, it's serviceable. Nothing too great. Actually, a little bit on the weaker side. So 2.5.
2.5. So everybody seems to be falling in that sort of middle, sort of lukewarm on the story kind of grade. And bringing up the rear, but definitely not the least, is Metarog. Sir, how did you feel about the story? I'm going to plug my ears because I think you're going to go off.
Well, I'm listening to all you guys, and again, you guys are fabulous. You bring up some really great points. I mean, really do. But to me, I wanna enjoy the comic book, right? That's my goal, right? When I buy something, and as a more experienced or older or mature comic book collector, so not to say old fogey, right? We've been asking for this for many years, okay? We've been asking Marvel, hey, we want a great big battle. We want all the, the heroes on one side, all the villains on the other side, and we want to see sparks fly, right? So we asked for this for many years. When I say we as a collective, right? And you're right, this was made because Mattel came to Marvel and said, hey, listen, Kenner is making a lot of bucks from DC. We want to do the same thing, but we have some, kind of requirements, right? So this comic book was really written to tie in with those toys. So you have to think that you're going to have a lot of that kind of background. You're going to have a lot of setting up the different, who the heroes are, who the villains are, what the situation is, and the motivations, how they differ. And I think in that sense, in that higher concept realm, I think Shooter does a pretty good job considering the limitations and the target audience of this particular issue. All right. Now, is some of the dialogue, kind of hokey? Is it kind of lowbrow? Is it kind of just corny? Yeah, but I think that a lot of that was on purpose because he was trying to reach a certain audience for a certain end goal, right? But considering those limitations, I think when you look at the Beyonder and how he set up both teams and how he wants to elicit a certain kind of reaction from the villains. Hey, if I tell you, I'll give you the desires of your heart. Well, the villains are going to fight tooth and nail to get that because that's what they want. They want either money, success, power, and the heroes don't really have that motivation. They're trying to figure out what's going on and trying to see how they can get out of the situation. So I think the overall concept of this issue was well done. Was that turkey? Was that the turkey gurgling?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. All right. So to me, I give Shooter a little bit more credit. Now remember, he couldn't give this to just any writer because the writer would have focused on their characters, the one that they're writing in their book, right? So if you give it to Bill, Matlow, or they're going to emphasize their character. So he had to take it upon himself to do it. Besides being editor-in-chief, he had to go and write this thing because again, the powers on high said you got to do this because it's money, and this was a big hit. All right, so I don't focus so much on the individual verbiage so much or words, because there are some good counts, especially on Dr. Doom. I think his lust for power and his superiority complex are well done here, and how Wolverine is again he defies authority. He doesn't want to follow Captain America. There's some really good little points here and there. Okay, it's not perfect by any means, but I give it a 3.5.
3.5. So a little bit of Shooter love there from Metarog.
Metarog valiantly defending his book.
That's right. Yeah. Definitely loves Shooter a bit. Yeah, I got it. I'm trying to think of it in terms of how I read it now. But I mean, when I was 11 and I bought this thing, man, like I loved it. Like the story really was all over it for me. So maybe like you do have some really good points that, Shooter wrote this thing for a specific audience, and it worked. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so let's find out what the chat thinks of the
where's the chat at?
interior story at. Then we could talk a little bit more.
The best thing that resulted from Secret Wars, not Spidey's symbiote costume, but She-Hulk joining the FF.
Oh yeah,
I was a fan. I dug that when She-Hulk was in the FF.
And also Thing kind of branching out and becoming his own character a little more as a solo series came out of this versus when he was on 2-in-1 and Fantastic Four. He went out and he wanted to find himself. He wanted to be the solo. He wanted to see what he was made of, so he stayed on there. And I thought it was pretty good decision too.
Problem with that Thing book, I know that Thing book's kind of stemmed from this one, but they took away his powers a lot of the time, and that's just, to me, that's always the worst thing you can do to a character, is take away their powers. Because now I'm just reading a comic book about a regular guy. Like, who wants to do that?
And Unruly Simeon, for the first time ever, with a less than 1 grade, with a 0.5 on the right.
Wow.
Even Liefield's X-Force, I think we gave like a 1.
Yeah,
that's awesome. 0.5.
Wow.
Oh,
hey, that's cool, man. I like guys who know what they like or dislike, and that's Unruly Simeon.
Unruly Simeon very much dislikes this one. So yeah, everybody else, grades, please.
So 0.5. Barbarian Kung Fu comes in with a strong 3. Kachung 2.5. Werewolf by Lunchtime agrees with me, 3.5. Chad says 2. Matt says I'm going to go 3.5 too. And Thing getting his time in the spotlight, but my fave is the black Spidey suit. All right, good going, Matt. And never read it, and that's about it.
I will say that as far as storing goes, if you go further in the series, it does get better. Just warning you ahead of time. And I think the best story in the whole series is issue 10 for those who've actually read it all. So, but yeah, there's good stories to be had. It just wasn't so much in the first. So
Yeah, agreed. I think 10 is the highlight. Yeah, agreed.
We got one more late grade in there with Mini Song giving it a 3.
Yep, that's my buddy Javi, who's the co-host with Chad 90MF Comics on his Wednesday show. He knows his stuff for sure.
Yeah.
And that brings the chat grade to right down the middle, 2.5.
2.5. Chad agrees with most of us.
Nice.
Those points.
All right. So I'm going to start off this time with the concept part of it. As a concept, like taking a big mass of supervillains and a big mass of superheroes and putting them in their own crazy planet that you call Battle World is, that's a pretty great concept. I like the concept, right? And especially when you're adding in like super cosmic powered characters that, have their own motivations, time traveling characters, all this stuff is all being thrown into this kind of little bubble of a world. You have this overshadowing being that's so powerful that he can like knock Galactus down with one quick hit, So the concept to me was good. Secret Wars in itself, I read a little thing where the only reason that this book is called Secret Wars is because the word secret and the word wars really resonated with 12-year-old boys the most in a study. So then they ended up calling it the Secret Wars in order to entice it for 12-year-old boys, which worked. So, being handed that title and then having to kind of make a whole story around this concept of a secret war, I gave the concept a little bit better idea than the interior story, and I gave it a 3.5.
Nice, Dave. Nice.
Yeah. A little bit better than halfway up there for me. I thought, it had a lot more potential than it did, but the concept was really good. I mean, and we've seen this concept happen a few times, the Secret Wars 2 and other Secret Wars that have happened over the years, right? So I would like to hear what Mr. Genome thought the concept of Secret Wars.
Well, this is going to be out the gate my highest score, and I'm probably about to say something that's going to upset some people, but just using this as an example, this is the biggest story that Marvel ever did, and let me explain why. Even though they didn't flesh it out perfectly, because they should have had more of the cosmic beings involved in this, but this is way bigger than Infinity Gauntlet. This is way bigger than Heart of the Universe. This is a multiversal problem. The Beyonder pre-retcon is second only to the One Above All. I don't think the Living Tribunal can touch him. So you're taking a being who, sees through a pinhole in our galaxy and has no concept of right, wrong, consequences, anything like that. He can destroy not just the universe, like the multiverse. He's that powerful. So, yeah, I mean, and then to add on to that, we don't know if he's a threat. I mean, out of maybe accidental, like petulism, maybe he would be a threat. But now you're also taking the most powerful heroes and villains on Earth and parts beyond and mashing them together to fight. What a concept. I mean, it's simple, but it's really brilliant. And they really went all out. It may have been a giant marketing campaign for removing toys and stuff, but it was still a good one. I mean, you can't go wrong when you pit good guys and bad guys against each other, and when you put more of the both together, you just got a recipe for innate goodness. So it's a high concept on a lowbrow kind of setting somewhat, but it's huge. It's a huge event, and I mean, it was my favorite thing to read growing up, and everything else that seemed to pale in comparison. And even when Secret Wars 2 came around, that was another big, huge event that just basically took the whole Marvel universe and stood it on its head. It's like, we have a character here that is so beyond everything else that even with the combined powers of said heroes and villains, they're not going to beat this guy in a head-on. It has to be the guy himself who stops doing what he's doing, which was well, I won't ruin the story for everybody but yeah, I think it was a great concept. And it moved a lot of issues too. So unfortunately, we didn't see a whole lot of repercussions from this, other than afterwards they had the Thing storyline, which was really cool. The little offshoot series that they had when Bang Grimm stays behind, but that's a story for another day. But yep, great concept, love it. It gets a solid 5 out of me. It's perfect.
Wow.
Oh, wow. High praise indeed, sir. High praise indeed.
That is something. Wow.
Yeah. So next, I would like to hear. Well, I mean, Gino, there's nothing left to say, bud. You obviously you love that. You love the concept overall here. Roger, let's see what you think, brother. Tell me, give me your years of wisdom. How do you feel about this concept?
Or years of misery, depending how you look at it. Well, I think Gino hit some really good points. Obviously, you can't argue with the fact that this was an incredible and uncategorical success. Okay, Marvel. After this came out, I was at the LCS, and these things were being gobbled up left and right. All right, because again, back then, we wanted these big. Remember, in the 80s, we had a Contest of Champions in 1982, right? But that was really an offshoot of like an Olympic. It was a story that was kind of retconned into a Contest of Champions, but it was really not, villain versus superhero. It was kind of a all hero thing, right? So we wanted the big, if we're going to make an analogy, we wanted one of those, epic, everybody thrown in the same ring. And then what is it, Comic Head, when they throw everybody in the same ring and the last man who's left in the ring wins?
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale, that's right.
Or Royal Rumble, whichever you prefer.
Right? We wanted to see carnage. We wanted to see, fisticuffs. We wanted to see treachery. We wanted to see all these things. And this concept of putting, essentially dynamite together with fire was brilliant. Okay. And it achieved the goal that it was set out to do. And Dave was right. The marketing was that Secret and Wars together somehow was a magical combination to sell toys and to sell comics, and it worked. Okay. So if we're to judge this on the results that it achieved, I see why Gino went with a 5, because it achieved exactly what it wanted to do. Right. Now, to me, though, I think this could have been a little bit better. As I said, the Beyonder aspect, I think, was brilliant, because now, as Genome said, we thought Galactus was, one of the top dudes, and in the story it even says to the Beyonder, Galactus is like a flea, right? So we're talking another level of cosmic entity here that we hadn't seen before, right? And I wanted to see more. I was like, what's going to happen here? What is the result here? I mean, this story went in ways that I couldn't predict. And to me, that made it exciting, because the concept was there. That was an exciting concept. It is something that we had wanted for a long time. We got it. We loved it. We devoured it. So again, I wish that there had been more of an expansive types of villains. Of heroes and villains. Like a little bit, there were some of them, like Wrecking Crew, I could have done without. You know what I mean? I would have preferred some little bit higher level villains there. But it is what it is. They had to do what they did to sell toys, so I understand that. But overall, I give this really high concept 4.5.
4.5. Yeah, more concept love there from Roger. Definitely, you like this one in overall. All right, so I don't know what more to say. If you guys are hitting them with the 5, I mean, we can't really expand any further on that one. Kenny, bring it home for us, brother. Wrap this concept thing up for us. Tell us what you think.
Let me tell you something, brother, about this concept. I think it's cool. Battle world type thing. It's simple. It's but in a good way, especially if you're trying to market to kids and you're trying to push toys. You know, you gotta love a simple concept like that. But even in general, I'm down with it. Sometimes you just want to get rid of all the, sometimes stories can get a little convoluted. This book, in that sense, I guess, is like the opposite of Crisis on Infinite Earth, which had a lot going on in it. Still a great comic, but it's like it's almost on the other spectrum from that. It's like, hey, want to just wrangle everyone up and make them fight? Like, real straight to the point, simple. Which it's designed to deliver action. It's going to be an action-packed book with these guys pitted against each other like that. It's cool to see all its heroes team up. Interesting choice of characters. I do agree with Metarod that the villains, there's some interesting picks with villains there. I think they could have, maybe put some other higher caliber villains in that mix, but all good. I think it's cool. Limited series. This is probably one of the early Marvel limited series, I would think, right?
Yes, correct.
It was, right? So, in that respect, trailblazing a little bit for Marvel, trying something like this out. So, overall, hey, it's good. It's not the deepest storyline in the world, but Battle Royale in a comic. Good with me. I gave it a 4.
Nice. 4 from Kenny. A little bit more love for the concept from the rest of these guys than for me, but not a bad overall take on the concept. We all seem to sort of enjoy it at least. So how about the chat? How did you guys feel about the concept? Please go to the chat and put up a grade for us, and we'll add them all up, or Kenny will add them all up, and then we'll give a chat average. So if you can go ahead and put your grades in now. 4.5 concept from Unruly Simeon already.
Comics Misexplained, way up here, put up 4.5.
Oh, did he? Here, you do it, Roger.
Yeah.
And Kenny, something's going on with your mic there, brother.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it sounds like it's windy around there or something. Did you get so animated you hit something?
I don't know. Nothing really happened.
Yeah,
it sounds like you're like talking by the ocean or something.
Is that the sound of slabs falling down? Oh, okay.
Is the poltergeist showing up again? Or talk again there, Kenny? Say something, Kenny? Oh, he's muted. Okay.
Mutant.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely something going on with this mic. How
about now? Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All this
right.
time, I thought that I was talking into the microphone, but I was going off of my laptop mic, apparently.
Mhm.
And as I was putting my note piece of paper across my computer, that was the wind noise you were hearing. My notes on my keyboard.
I tell you, is there anything else that we could run into technically wrong in this chat? I tell you.
The joys of live streaming, for sure.
I tell you,
That's funny.
All right, so
Okay,
we got.
Sorry, you're gonna have to reread those concept grades if you could.
4.5 from Comics Misexplained. Then we go down and we got 4.5 from the Unruly One himself. Florida Chad comes in with 4. Okay, I already talked about that. Wolf Warner comes in with a 5 out of 5. Solid, Wolf.
My guy.
That's what I'm talking about.
MIDI Songs comes in with a 4. Werewolf by Lunchtime, all the way from Australia, 4.5. I think that's it, unless you see something else.
Come on, D-Runk, throw your grade down, bro.
Oh, there it is.
There it is, 3.5.
There he is.
Oh, my chat froze, so you guys read out the rest.
No, that's pretty much it after D-Runk.
Okay, that's good. We can work with that.
Oh, no, we got another 4 now, but
Ka-ching. Ka-ching. Okay.
All right. Thanks everybody for putting in your grades. Kenny, did you get a number tally?
Oh, snap. Did I do that math right? Hold up.
Oh,
22.4. Oh.
What'd you get?
Let's see. 30. Hold on. Caleb, Smurf just added a grade. Let me add him into it. Plus, he might round it down. Hold on. Okay, 33. 33.5 divided by 8.
I need to make an
Oh,
Excel
he
sheet
brought
for
the
this.
grade down. It was almost going to be a 5.
Ah,
Instead, it's got a 4.18. So
someone
it's a
boot him from
4.
the chat. Oh.
4. So overall concept hitting a 4. That seems to be pretty much in line with how we all felt about it. A little more in the middle between me and a couple of you guys there, but yeah. So definitely the concept is scoring much better than the rest of the book so far.
Yeah.
Right. And it was a really good concept. It was just, poorly done in a lot of ways. It had so much potential, but Shooter had to dumb it down. Sex seemed to be phoning it in a little bit. I don't know. All right. So let's hit our last category. We'll finish this up. Overall, how did you feel taking everything into consideration, everything going on? And we're going to start back with our first starter, and that's you, Gino. You get to start off with our overall.
Well, I went ahead and did something that I'm not a real big fan of. I actually bumped the score up a little bit higher than the aggregate should be of it. But it's my prerogative, right? I actually went with an overall. Well, first let me read you my grades. My grades for the cover art were 3.5. My grade for interior art was 3.0 or 3. My grade for story was 2.5, and my grade for the concept was 5. So yeah, you do have some weird things throwing off the bell curve there, but I went ahead and gave this actual book a 4. The concept is so high and big, and the consequences, even though they really weren't, they could be so lasting in the books for basically ever, as far as Marvel goes, and they can keep getting stories out of this forever too, by the way. So it's just so big, and the book itself was so big, especially at a time when a lot of comics weren't moving huge amounts of copy. You know what I mean? It was a big event, and it helped move everything from toys and other offshoots. So I am going to go above and beyond and say this book was better than the sum of its parts, really. Like I said, the story is the weakest part of it by far. The art could definitely use some improvement, but that might not be completely the artist's fault. It might have been just time crunched, and it might have been, Tom DeFalco saying, no, we need more heroes. We need more villains inside here, or who knows? We're not in the room, so we don't know. Yeah, I mean, the execution was a little bit lacking, but the actual book itself was just a great idea. And being a maxi series like it was, 12 issues wasn't the most common thing in the world either back then. And It still went off with great aplomb. I mean, it's a pretty hard concept to think about. You just take the biggest licenses of everything you have and cram it all into 12 issues. Not easy. And while at the same time, we have to make it interesting for the reader. So what's another thing is interesting. I didn't really have time to get into it about the Beyonder is he has very, very little involvement in the story other than putting everything together, because once again, he's so big a threat that these guys can't do anything about him. So that's why it's pretty cool that the book veers back towards personal stories of these characters and what they're going through to try to get through this, tribulation, if you will. So yeah, the book was big. The book was huge. It resonates to this day somewhat, even though they retconned the crap out of Beyonder, and I don't know why. And I'm so stupid, but I don't even count the retcon Beyonder anymore. That's not the Beyonder in my book. I'm OG, but big book, good book. Like I said, and once again, some of the other issues do improve upon the first book quite a bit. A lot of the self-explanation goes away. I think once again, a lot of that too was instruction from the higher up saying, hey, we need to market this to a younger demographic or a newer demographic who's never read the books before. Let's just give them an issue to let them know what all these people do and stand for. And that way they know which action figures they want to pick out or whatever. But so big book. And yep, I'm going to have to give it a 4.0.
4.0 from Gino. All right. So that's some pretty good praise there. Yeah, I can't argue against any of your points either there, Gino. So, 4.0 from Gino. Metarok. This is it, brother. Sum it up. Tell us how you really. No, listen to me. Tell us how you really feel.
Well, I can do nothing but because I'm a terrible actor. So you get the real thing from me. All right. I keep thinking back to a younger Metarog, just out of high school, reading this, and the fascination, the wonder, the awe that this series was to me. It really was just so special to me because it's the conglomeration of a lot of my dreams and hopes for Marvel. So if you asked a younger Metarog this question overall, it would be a lot higher because this really just hit me right through the, right smack in the chops, right? And left an impact. Now with 30 some years later, the more jagged, the more, cynical, the more analytical Metarog is perhaps not quite as enamored as he was back in 1984. And I see a little bit of the warts that I thought were beauty marks in the past. So even though I think the concept, like Genome stated, was brilliant, considering the objective of the comic, it was absolutely successful. There are no two ways about it. The art, again, to me was just average. And I think, Dave, you hit some good points. Maybe, he was told that he had to fit, more action or more characters into these panels because they wanted to expose those characters because of the tie-in. Still in all, I thought that the art really was not ideal for this type of comic. The cover I thought was good enough. It had some flaws, but I think that it attracted attention. If you were a fan of Marvel Comics, you wanted to buy this because one of your favorite characters or teams were going to be in here. The writing, again, the actual words were not the best. They were, again, a little bit on the junior high side, but I think that was on purpose. But again, the setups of this issue, the way that that Dr. Doom was used, the way that the Beyonder was teased, I think those were well done. But I can't get over, unfortunately, that the art that was just so distracting to me in many areas. It just didn't really hit it for me when I read this a few times this week. So I'd like to go higher, but I can only go 3.5 overall.
3.5 from the Metarog. So yeah, you were a little above average, but in the overall, not in love with it.
Correct.
All right. So next, my opinion that I would like to hear, and I'm sure that the audience would like to hear. We're all waiting on pins and needles for this guy's opinion. Kenny, how did you feel about this one overall? Now that we can hear you.
Yeah, because I'll tell you, I think I'm the one guy on this panel. I know I am. I haven't read the series. I've never read Secret Wars. I know you can unsubscribe for me if you need to.
Friends off.
Yeah, I just never got around to reading it. It's not a Tracy around very often too. Like I feel like when I got back into reading comics, like in my 20s, I did a lot of that through trades, and so I would always be in the trade section of a lot of bookstores, and I feel like I don't know, I just didn't see this one around a lot. So anyway, never got around to reading it. I know of the concept, but so I feel like when I'm grading this book, it's just off this issue. I have no benefit of knowing, well, it's going to get good, or I know they're setting up X, Y, and Z. I'm just looking at what I got, and it's definitely enticing me to, want to finish and see where it goes. I'm hoping it ends up with the classic heroes and villains team up together versus a greater evil kind of thing, because I always love when that happens. Just like my favorite G.I. Joe movie, when G.I. Joe and Cobra have to team up to fight the drug dealers. Anyway, that's a tangent from my overall grade. The cover I gave a 4 because, yeah, I dug it. I felt like the layout was a little awkward, but still just iconic and fun. Like you said, it'd make you want to pick it up off the rack if you saw it on 1984 New Comic Book Day. Interior art, 3, nothing to write home about. To use Genome's term, serviceable. The writing, I gave it a generous 2.5 because Doom was so badass and his lines were so great, as was Magneto's. If it wasn't for those two guys dropping those stellar monologues and just being cool characters in the story, it probably would have slid a little down in the rankings there for me. But yeah, just the announcing of what everyone's doing is so silly. And it started a meme in the chat. Barbarian Kung Fu. You were cracking me up with that earlier, by the way. It's so funny when you think of real people speaking like that. Hey, Dave, Mr. Miracle, I, Comic Kid 84, think that if I did that all the time, you'd be like, this guy's an asshole. Let alone do I want him to, like, save the planet. The concept, I gave a 4. It's a fun concept. It's simple, but it's designed for action. It seems like there's no choice but to have a bunch of action scenes in the coming issues. So definitely looking forward to that. 4 on the cover, 3 on the interior, 2.5 in the writing, 4 on the concept. Overall, this book falls at a 3 for me. And I feel like that's about right. That's what the math was on the aggregate. And I feel like that's about where I'm at with it as well. And welcome to the latest entry into the chat here, Alec Whitewell Comics.
Yay.
White Whale.
The Natural is in the house.
The Natural, Coco B. Whale.
All right, you said
You're going to do a woo for there for a second.
Woo.
You said overall 3.5, Kenny?
No, solid 3.
3.
Oh, 3. That's right, 3. Okay. Man, yeah, you got to read this series. I mean, I know for you when this book came out, you were 0. Like,
issue 7 came out on my birthday. Yep.
Issue 7 came out on your birthday, so you were right in the middle of the series when this came out. Maybe this was your first comic. Maybe somebody put that in your crib. You just don't know it yet. Anyways, for me, I had to take into consideration, did it do what it was supposed to do, which was advertise these toys? Yes. Did Shooter set up a story for kids that kids like? Yes. This was a hugely popular book amongst kids and adults. It leads the pack in, a first, huge limited series like this, 12. And then to have so many crossovers with the other books, this was an entirely new concept, right? This is par for the go now. This happens all the time in the Marvel universe, in the DC universe. Something happens here, and there's 50 crossover books for it there, and then something else is going to happen. But back in 1984, that was revolutionary. That was something that was like, whoa, the whole comic company, like everybody's going to have something go on with this story. And so based on that, the fact that it did what it did, I really like the cover. How many cover swipes have there been of this? I mean, there's that really great Alex Ross cover swipe of this one. If you ever, Google that and take a look at it. And so for an overall book based on its history, where it lacked on the story and where it lacked on some of the interior art, and the concept still seems a little bit like, let's just set up a big brawl, like you were saying, right? But I mean, that's what 12-year-olds want. That's what 10-year-olds want. And so overall, I gave it a 4.
Wow. Nice.
Number 4. And by the way, that Alex Ross cover is the cover of the digital thing I downloaded. Was
right.
That and tremendous, dude.
Yeah, like that's just so much better. Notice how he's got rid of that word bubble here, and he's really fleshed Nightcrawler way out more, right? Like there's still kind of
he also still has his tiny little Colossus there, but I guess it's not as bad.
Yeah, isn't that an oxymoron, tiny little colossus?
I guess it would be.
Yeah, probably.
All right,
Beauty,
so let's leave it up to the chat. How did you guys feel about the overall concept and art and everything that encompasses this book to give it an overall grade? So put your numbers up in the chat right now, and we'll get Comic Kid 84 to give us an add up. But
I got my advocates ready. I got all 10 fingers ready to start adding. If it goes beyond 10, I'm going to be hurting.
Yeah.
Take yourself to my toes.
Let's give them a minute to let them float in. By the way, a little tidbit of information. I think Thor 383 had a untold story of what occurred to the Enchantress in Secret Wars that everybody out there, if you haven't read it, is a cool little interlude. So
which number was that, Roger?
I think it's Thor 383. It's a one-issue story about I'm not going to spoil it, but it's like what happened to the Enchantress when she was captured by the heroes.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't know about that. Thanks for letting us know that.
Yeah, there are advantages to being old fogies who actually picked this up back in the 80s. You know, you remember stuff like that.
I picked it up. I just wasn't old at the time.
Oh, you were
at the time.
You were yay high. You were a moppet at the time. Don't worry, you were a youngster.
You call him a muppet?
Moppet, sir. M-O, not M-U.
I thought he called me a muppet too. I was like, hey, we're gonna have words after this.
Yeah, that's such an underrated insult. I always love when I hear someone say, "Yeah, that guy's a fucking muppet." I love it.
Yeah, exactly, man.
I always want to be the Swedish chef. Rinny.
I almost like the guys up on the balcony. You know, the two critics. You know, they roasted everybody.
This is true.
Yeah.
They were like, imagine if they saw a Liefeld book. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Well, we already did that one. I mean,
off the balcony.
I mean, I think my issue just turned to ash after we finished because it was so on fire.
We got any more chat grades come out there?
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Chad, overall 3. I have to go. Thank you for joining us, Chad. We're almost finished. So 3. Comics Mix Explained 4. Thank you for joining us, Comics Mix Explained. D-Runk comes in with a 3. I thought it'd be higher, George. Anyway, Gray Man comes in with a 3.5. Well, Gray, where have you been with all the other grades, man? Matt comes in with 3.5. Werewolf by Lunchtime hung with us the whole thing. We appreciate it. 3.5.
80 songs down at the bottom there.
Comic Ace, high 7. Is that a 3.5?
No, I think he's saying hi to the boy at 7.
Oh, hi, boy at 7. Oh, you see? Forget it.
By the way, I love MIDI music as well, especially the 8-bit stuff.
MIDI songs, 3.5. I see a pattern here, guys.
3.5?
Okay. Yeah, I think the average is going to be 3.5 because it's either 3.5 and a 3 and a 4. So, but you can do the math there.
The average is indeed 3.5.
Yeah, see that? The old brain still works somewhat.
Yeah. And hey, Comic Ace, what's up, my brother?
Hey, buddy.
Just so you know, I've got a.
So the chat grade ended up being a 3.5.
Coming soon.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what it looks like. I didn't get the original their cover score for the chat, but I do have their chat's interior art was 2.5. Chat's story was 2.5, chat's concept was 4.5, and their overall was 3.5. So pretty much in keeping with our scores, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chat is usually pretty much on point. They really are.
Yeah, so are we. We're good that way.
Well, that's your opinion. Some of us better than others, That's the way it goes.
Exactly.
But that's the way it has to be, We don't pull punches here. We don't give no quarter, nor do we ask.
Nope, right. None taken or asked. I'll tell you, I'm very glad you brought this book up, though, because I haven't read this series in a long time. I remember loving it so much. I lost most of it in the Great Flood, but I still have like 2 or 3 issues left. And and this and Secret Wars 2 were so good, and they were so iconic back then. They were even big back in like the later 80s, when I was still collecting. So, and a lot of the Bronze Age stuff was not respected, at least when I was collecting. It was all the newest, latest, greatest, shiny things, and still that was a venerable series even then. So yeah, I'm real glad you picked this one up, Dave. I'm glad we get to actually look over it again.
Yeah, when I fixed it, I wanted to like pick a book that anybody could go and get that wasn't too expensive, but was still kind of iconic. And I hadn't read it in a long time myself, and I was really thinking in my head that it stood up much better than it did. So I'm glad I picked it because I got a reread on it, and it's really nostalgic for me, and it brought me back to being a kid. So, what about you, Kenny? Did you like it?
I did like it. I'm glad you picked it too, since it's one that I hadn't got around to reading. Miss Explained brought up Hickman's Secret Wars, and I did read that one. That's the one with God Doom, I think, and Molecule Man and stuff. I did read that one. I like that one very much. But yeah, man, I enjoyed reading it. I got it loaded up here on the tablet. I'm definitely gonna finish it. Now I feel obligated. I need to run through it, see what we got going on. It seems like Dr. Doom is a big part of it. So I'm a big I love me some Doom.
It's the Doom show. This whole series is basically.
Yeah.
And Magneto was too, right? I know he has a big cover appearance on, I think, issue 2, right?
Yeah, but compared to Doom, really, Magneto was a second fiddle.
Yeah.
Doom really is the one that really set up a lot of the confrontations and the ultimate resolution. So I agree. Doom
Which
is
hero
the man.
is the forefront guy, you think? Who shines as the hero? Is Spider-Man the one that takes the cake, or?
I'd say Captain America.
I'd say Captain America for sure.
I'd say Captain America. Yeah.
Yeah, Captain America. The Hulk actually is really cool in this because this is like the first appearance, I think, of Professor Hulk, if you will. He has his full intellect in this, which is kind of a cool thing. They really they taper off a lot of showing his physical prowess. They show him thinking a lot. He's like one of the big decision makers in some of the later issues. So that's pretty cool. But I'd say between Cap and Hulk are the most interesting heroes in this.
Agreed. Yeah.
Nice.
Speaking of retcons, now I know they retcon Beyonder into a laughing joke, but didn't they retcon Molecule Man as well? Because around the time of Secret Wars 2, it's even explained that he's the second most powerful being in existence. But I hear they kind of dropped him down a few pegs, but I haven't read anything newer in a long time. So does anyone know?
He kind of goes back and forth.
He's a hard one to write well. I know. Doesn't him and Beyonder go into another big like battle royale like later on, like in the 2000s or something like that, and they almost wipe out the multiverse or something?
Yeah, they fight quite a bit. They're two big powerful characters, basically have the same power. And there's another retcon where Deadpool's in it, right?
But that's
they got to shove Deadpool and everything.
But
he's like Wolverine in the 80s,
Yeah. I don't consider that part of the canon. It's
why he made everybody forget.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I want to remember, not forget. Boy Who Has Seven's giving us some recommendations here. Death in the Family, Hush, FF 48 through 50, Thanos Quest. We actually talked about Thanos Quest. New Avengers, X-Men, God Loves, Man Kills. And there's so much material out there that we could look at. But thank you for those suggestions. But I think Genome, you're up next, aren't you?
What are we talking about here?
For the next episode?
Oh, okay. Usually we'll go through like, what do you have next coming down the pipe? And then we'll talk about the books too.
Okay.
I guess
he wants to save it for the grand finale, that's cool.
Save it for the grand finale.
Boom.
So
there you have it.
I'm all for dramatic exits. That's okay.
We'll have that real soon here. Let's see.
There you have it. Another book gone through the graders notes, the rigorous graders notes grading system. The chat came through. I think this was our most powerful and most attended chat that we've done. So that's encouraging. And every single person in the chat is one of the homies, some person that I really enjoy. either watching their stuff or them being in the chat that I like shooting the breeze with. So awesome turnout. Appreciate that. Hope you guys enjoyed us going through and doing our graders notes thing with Secret Wars, numero uno. This is what we do on a bi-weekly basis. We cycle between guys picking a book that we want to run through. There's no real, the only criteria, I guess, that we've been using thus far is a book that was significant in some way. And we're not necessarily going with, hey, let's do a random back issue of what have you. Who knows if the show will evolve into that. But right now we're looking at like more tentpole or significant books in some way. So yeah, we're cycling through. Everyone gets to choose each issue, choose their issue each episode. This was Mr. Miracle's pick. The next pick is Genome's. We'll save his pick for the very last finale. So yeah, I guess if you guys want to go through, let's do the rounds of
wrap it up.
What we have going on. Mr. Miracle, you're running your contest.
Yeah, brother.
That must be coming close to an announcement, eh?
It's tomorrow night, Pacific Standard Time, midnight. It ends. And then I'm going to do the drawing live on Saturday. So there's a huge amount of stuff you can win, you guys. Go take a look at my contest video. All kinds of ways you can enter. Man, the mystery prize. Oh my God. Whoever's going to get that mystery prize, you're welcome. Trust me, you definitely want that shit.
Trust me, you want that shit.
You don't have to make a video, right? You don't have to be like a big video content. There's a place for people to just do a comment entry. You can do it on an Instagram post, all kinds of stuff. But it ends tomorrow at midnight. So, do whatever you can, get that last minute entry in there. And then we'll draw it on Saturday.
It's just pick a few books that you think are undervalued right now. So it was even fun to make a video or at least come up with some entries for it.
And then I've been gathering up everybody's recommendations, and I did like 10 undervalued books that were viewers' picks. And I've actually got enough picks now. I'm actually on Wednesday. I'll do another 10 undervalued viewers' picks, and then from there we'll go back to my regular content.
Nice. Yeah, I like that you were doing that. That was a nice touch to use the viewer picks for.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Hey man, easy content, right?
Yeah.
Get everybody else to do the work for you.
I guess
Thought
so.
it was being altruistic.
That's the way to do it.
My contest, right? I've got my own motivations for doing the contest. Think of all the undervalued books I daylighted.
Good stuff, Mr. Miracle. You the man. Genome, you interview any snake experts lately or what?
No snake experts. I do have 2 interviews lined up. I just got to work on scheduling. One of them was with famed crocodile biologist Adam Britton of Australia. There's for you, werewolf. Also have another Aussie lined up down the pipe. I just confirmed this the other day. I had to hash out a date, but I'm actually going to be interviewing well-known, if you used to follow any mixed martial artist, Elvis Sinisek. So otherwise known as the king of rock and rumble. So that'll be down the pipe shortly. I recently uploaded my dissertation of some of the Garth Ennis run for the Punisher. So might have some more of that coming up. I've read through most of them now, so I think it's deserving of going through. And you just never know what's going to be on the channel next, so stay tuned for more.
Bam. Mr. Metarog. What's going on the Metarog YouTube channel? Aside from always keeping everyone informed on all the contests that are happening. That's the great resource that Metarog provides for you. But he also just has cool comic book content himself, showing you books, great collection of his own. So what's cooking in that department there, Metarog?
Well, now that I can put away my advanced thesaurus because Genome is off of here, let me just say that it's a pleasure serving this community. Just look at this chat. Look at all the incredible channels, the incredible content that we are, blessed with here. And that's why I do the roundup. I mean, Silver Age Dave had it. He asked me to take it over, and I just I am just so honored to be able to do that for this great community. And I just want to say that if you do know of a contest, don't keep it secret. Let me know. Let's make sure that we get exposure to those guys that are supporting us by giving, like Mr. Miracle, that big mystery box, all those great Silver Age keys. You know, let's show them some love, support, enter their contests, sub them up, and show them that we appreciate all that they're giving back to us. On Tuesdays, I generally do one of my that's generally my indulgent video, right? Like I just did a review and a survey and a complete set of the Archie horror titles from the 70s, the Red Circle imprint. I'm going to do a review of the Tower comics from the 60s. I'm going to be doing a different formats of comics and graphic novels. And I'm going to be doing my all subscriber shout outs also about every month. I've been lax on that just because I had to pick so many comics out. And then I always try to do a contest entry on the weekend to support this great community. So again, just thank you for just supporting my channel, Mr. Miracle, Comic Head, Genome. We really appreciate it because without you, this show would be nowhere. We'd just be talking on Google Hangouts, you know, and not sharing here. So thank you so much for your input and your support.
Well said, Matarog. And I second that, man. I feel like when I first started making YouTube videos of just showing like my new comic book day stuff back last year, I did not think it would evolve into this, into like making friends and making content like this. It's like I think I had 500 subscribers the other day, which is wild. I really didn't think that was going to happen at all. And yeah, it's good stuff. I feel like I've been welcomed into this little club that we have here on YouTube of talking comics and stuff. Everyone was just super cool to me ever since the jump, right from when I had no subs. So good stuff. Very humbling, very appreciative. Making videos and linking up with everyone. Like I've gotten so much more out of the comic collecting hobby than I used to in the past. Like, you know, because I got a couple people IRL in real life that you know, I could talk comics with and show them what I got and stuff, but nothing like what I have here. So it's like, yeah, it's done wonders for just me personally with this hobby of comic collecting and enjoying it and getting recommendations. Like, man, so lucky and happy that I found you guys. In saying that,
likewise,
what's coming down the pipe for Comic Heads channel? I don't know, man. You guys, I don't know. Stay tuned. I know I'm like on the Comic Core with Alec and Chad and Smurf on Mondays. This one's every other Thursday, and I'm determined to get this new show concept. I put like a teaser on it on Instagram like weeks ago, and I haven't followed up yet. But it's one that I'm looking forward to pull the trigger on. I got to find some time. 20 questions with Comic Kid 84. And
nice.
I think you guys are gonna like it. And what it's really designed to do is, you know, the name is what it is. I'm gonna ask someone 20 questions, right? But they're not your standard cookie cutter questions. The Comic Head 84 questions, okay? Which is a whole other kind of question. And what do you call it? And really what I want it to do is like give me an opportunity to link up just one-on-one with all the people in the community, you know, so I can at least, it'll just give me an excuse to be like, hey, Comics Misexplained, come on my 20 question show, just so like I have a chance to sit one-on-one with you guys and chop it up. So that's what that show is. It's hopefully going to be a chance for me to just grab you guys and one-on-one shoot the breeze. And
Nice.
That's it. So that's what we all have going on the channel. Be sure to check in to, you know, the Graders Notes show every other Thursday. We cycle between who picks the books and who's hosting for who has the video on their channel. So the next pick is Mr. Genome Presents. So make sure you're subbed up to him and you're keeping an eye on his channel 2 Thursdays from now, because that's where we're going to be reviewing. Drum roll.
I actually have to set it up first. All right, so drum roll is a good setup, but I got to actually take you way back. The year is 1990. A 14-year-old me with a great complexion and a stately mullet walks into his LCS. Now, mind you, there's no such thing as the internet for us lowly peeps back there. Well, a couple AOL dial-up users, but it wasn't us. Walks into his LCS, for his weekly pickups. And what does he see on the stand? The colors orange and green jump out at me. Orange and green are not normal colors, so it automatically grabs my eye. But it's by Dark Horse Comics, so of course I give it a look-see. And what do I find? Aliens vs. Predator #1. The comic I've never been more hyped to get in my entire life. Every issue I salivated for. So that will be the subject of our next dissertation, if it will. Looking back at this great mashup of two iconic sci-fi monsters, if you will, and or aliens. So if you want to read along with us or grade along with us, should I say, feel free to pick the issues up. And I guess we'll see you in 2 Thursdays as we dissect and see if it stands its test of time.
Excellent.
Boom.
Nice.
You heard it here first. Dark Horse, Alien vs. Predators. #1. Or maybe 1 through 4. We got to talk about that still.
Yeah,
Either way,
we'll go into that a little bit, but it's just I'll even give you more of a sneak peek. Just to say,
I have to break out my thesaurus again. Hold on,
I actually have a question for the chat. Does anyone else seen Phil Norwood do anything else other than Aliens Predator? Because I can't find anything. But here's some of the covers that he did for this series, and they're absolutely stupendous. I mean, this guy is incredible. So I'm really disappointed that I couldn't find really anything else that he's done. But yeah, just an amazing series, and I can't wait to really review this one.
Yeah, never read that. I already ordered my 1 through 4 off eBay. I got it for cheap, man. I don't even know if it was $10 all told. So anyone who wants to follow along, you can probably find them on the cheap.
Oh yeah,
I'm definitely interested to give it a read. How about you guys? Have anyone else ever read this series, Roger Miracle?
I have read it, but I read it back in 1990, and honestly, I don't remember a lot of the details. I remember that that it had that sci-fi horror genre, which I liked. But right after that, I kind of went to superheroes, and I kind of put those aside. So I'm very excited to read this, and mine are ringing their way to Mississippi as we speak. They'll be here in a couple days.
Boom! First impressions from Metarog. Miracle,
Yeah.
what say you? How does this rub you?
I've never read it yet either. So I was pretty happy with this pick. I've got mine. They're coming from the East Coast, I guess, of Canada. I bought mine in here inside the city, just off eBay. I suppose I probably could have, gotten off the couch and gone around and found it. It's not an incredibly hard series to find, so I kind of lazied it up. We got it sent to me, so it should be here. I ordered it a few days ago, so it should be here right away.
Boom.
And I will also say this, not just to build up because this is my pick. This is not your typical fare of them taking a license and just shoving it into a comic book. There's actually a well-written and formulated premise and story behind the whole thing. So it's not just.
We'll be the judge of that.
Yeah, but you'll agree with me. It's on my channel, or I'll start giving Das Boot. Yeah.
Are you trying to prime the pump here, Gino? That's a faux pas of major proportions on this particular show.
True. You got to put your thumb on the scales a little bit,
So there you have it, guys. I think we covered all the bases. Anyone have a parting word? We're good, right?
No, thanks to everybody for joining us, especially all of you guys that hung in there for the last 2 hours.
We'll try to start on time next time, guys, and keep it to the correct time length also.
Yeah, it won't be on my channel, so it's possible.
We'll get it on your channel, Dave. It'll just take a little bit of a little practice. That's all.
I wonder if they have YouTube course at the college.
Well, they
All
should. It's
right.
better than the economics class I took. That's for sure. at least it has some bearing, you know.
And boom. And once again, just some quick love on the way out. Boy Who Had Seven has been hanging out. Werewolf by Lunchtime has been hanging out like the whole time. I really appreciate that. Javi, MIDI songs, Mastodon Collecting just jumped in. My boy Comics Misexplained has been hanging out for basically the whole show. That is an honor. My boy the Blue Wrench, D-Runk, hanging out. Thank you very much for chilling, dude. The Gray Man. All right, I don't want to keep on taking too much time. And everyone else. I know Chad was hanging out. White Whale popped in. Okay, I just want to say I appreciate you. And with that, we're out. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Awesome.
Till next time.
Guys.
Yeah, brother.